John Hale floated in the zero-gravity confines of his failing shuttle, his breath visible in the cold air. The control panel flickered erratically, the last vestiges of power draining away. His eyes were fixed on the small window, where the endless stars mocked him with their cold, indifferent light. System diagnostics complete. The computer's voice was a weak whisper. Oxygen at critical levels. Life support failing. John let out a long breath, a cloud of moisture forming before him. "Well, it was a good run," he muttered to himself, his voice echoing slightly in the small space. He had been on a routine mapping mission at the edge of known space when his ship suffered a catastrophic failure. Now he was nothing more than a speck of dust in the vast cosmic ocean. Just as despair began to settle like a heavy cloak around him, something caught his eye. A shimmer, a movement outside his window. He squinted, his heart rate picking up. Could it be? He scrambled to the window, pressing his face against the cold glass. There, emerging from the star-studded darkness, was a ship unlike any he'd seen in human records. It was sleek, almost organic, with surfaces that seemed to pulse with a life of their own, glowing in hues of indigo and silver. "Unknown ship detected," his computer managed to say, its voice now barely a breath. John's mind raced. Was this rescue or something else? He watched as the ship maneuvered with an elegance that seemed almost dance-like. Then a hatch on the alien vessel opened, and a figure emerged, floating towards his shuttle with grace. He activated the external comms, the last function his ship could muster. "This is John Hale of the ESV Explorer. I'm in distress. Do you read?" Silence followed, and John's heart sank. But then a voice, melodious yet alien, crackled through the static. "John Hale, we see you. Stay calm. We are coming." The relief was overwhelming, but so was the fear of the unknown. The figure approached, and through the window, John saw her for the first time. She had skin like polished obsidian, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift like the night sky, and her eyes were like twin galaxies. She wore no spacesuit, her form protected by what must have been an invisible shield technology. She attached a device to his shuttle's airlock, and with a hiss of equalizing pressure, she entered. "Hello, John Hale," she said, her voice a blend of music and wind. "I am Lyra, from the Zenari. You are safe now." John could only nod, his voice caught in his throat. Thank you, Lyra. My ship, it's..." "Shh," Lyra interrupted, her hand reaching out to touch his, sending a warm, comforting pulse through him. "We will fix. Come, we go to my ship." With Lyra's guidance, John donned a makeshift pressure suit provided by his own shuttle and followed her through the airlock into her vessel. The transition was like entering a different world. The air felt fresh, and the interior was alive with light and movement. Lyra led him to a room where the walls seemed to breathe. "This is where you will stay. Here, you can breathe without your suit." John removed his helmet, taking in the air, which felt purer than any he'd known. "I don't know how to thank you," he managed to say. "You will learn," Lyra replied with a smile that seemed to light up the room. "Now, we must work together. Your shuttle, we can repair it, but it will take time." They spent the next hours working side by side, John explaining human tech, Lyra introducing him to the almost magical capabilities of her ship. Their hands often brushed as they worked, each touch a silent conversation of its own. As they labored, John felt a connection forming, not just to survival, but to something new, something vast and unknown, embodied by the mysterious and beautiful Lyra. John sat in awe as Lyra piloted her ship with movements that were fluid and almost dance-like. The vessel responded to her touch as if it were an extension of her own body. They had managed to stabilize his shuttle, tethering it to her ship for repairs that would require more than just human technology. "This is incredible," John said, his eyes wide as he watched the console light up like a constellation under Lyra's fingers. "How does it know what you want?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "It is not just knowing, it is feeling. My ship, Zenaris, is alive, like a friend. She feels my intentions through my touch and my thoughts." "Alive?" John's skepticism was evident. "You mean like AI, but sentient?" More than AI, Lyra explained. We grow these ships from seeds. They bond with us, grow with us. Zenaris is as much a part of me as I am of her. John was silent for a moment, processing this concept. I've never heard of anything like this. On Earth, our ships are just machines. Then we have much to teach each other, Lyra said, her voice warm with the prospect of sharing knowledge. Let's start with your shuttle. We need to understand its systems better to repair it. They moved back to where John's shuttle was connected. Lyra's tools, unlike anything John had seen, seemed to adapt to whatever task was at hand. They began the repair process, John explaining the mechanics while Lyra deciphered how to integrate her technology. This here, John pointed at a burnt-out circuit board, is the navigation system. It's fried. Lyra's fingers, slender and precise, hovered over the board. A small device, no larger than a pen, emitted a light that scanned the board. We can regenerate this, but it will take some of my ship's energy. Zenaris, can you help? A soft, almost melodic sound filled the room, which John guessed was Zenaris' affirmative. A beam of light from above enveloped the board, and slowly, the burnt areas began to heal, circuits reweaving themselves. Unbelievable, John murmured, watching the process with a mix of fascination and disbelief. We could try to teach Zenaris some of your language, Lyra suggested, her tone playful. She might enjoy learning human. John chuckled. I think she's already ahead of me. But sure, let's give it a try. They spent the next hour with Lyra teaching Zenaris simple English words, John's laughter mingling with the ship's harmonious responses. As they worked, John found himself sharing stories of Earth, of the sky, the oceans, and the bustling cities. Lyra listened, her eyes wide with wonder. In turn, she described her world, floating islands under 3 moons, seas that glowed at night. Your planet sounds like a dream, John said, his heart swelling with a longing to see such wonders. It is, Lyra agreed, but now I think it's time to see what we can dream together. Their hands met over the now functioning navigation system, a symbol of their newfound partnership. John felt a warmth in her touch, a promise of more than just survival. They were building something together, not just repairing a shuttle, but perhaps the foundation of a friendship, or something even deeper, across the vast chasm of their different origins. The repair of John's shuttle had brought them closer, not just physically in the confines of Lyra's living ship, but in understanding each other's worlds. They now sat in what Lyra called the heart room, where the ship's core energy pulsed, creating a soothing ambience. This place, John said, looking around at the walls that seemed to breathe light, it's like being inside a living organism. That's because you are, Lyra replied, her voice carrying a note of pride. Zenaris is not just a ship, she is a companion. Here we can feel the heartbeat of the universe. John chuckled, shaking his head. On Earth, we'd think you were poetic or crazy for saying that. Lyra smiled, her eyes sparkling. Then Earth has much to learn. Here, take this. She handed him a small, iridescent fruit with a texture like velvet. This is from my home. Taste it. John took a bite, the flavors exploding in his mouth, a mix of sweetness and an unearthly spice. Wow, this is unlike anything. It's like eating a star. Lyra laughed, a sound like chimes in the wind. I've always wanted to say that about human food. Now what do you have from Earth? John rummaged through his bag, pulling out a chocolate bar. This is chocolate. It's one of our simple pleasures. Lyra took it with reverence, breaking off a piece and letting it melt on her tongue. Her eyes widened in surprise. It's like a warm embrace. Is this common on your world? Not as common as it should be, John said with a grin, but it's a luxury we cherish. They sat in silence for a moment, savoring each other's gifts, the cultural bridge forming between them. Let's teach each other more, Lyra proposed, her enthusiasm infectious. You can teach me about human music. I've heard it's very expressive. John nodded, pulling out his multi-tool, which included a music player. This is jazz. It's all about improvisation, like life in space, I guess. As the smooth, syncopated rhythms of Earth's jazz filled the room, Lyra closed her eyes, swaying slightly. It's chaotic, yet there's a rhythm to the chaos, like the stars. Exactly, John exclaimed. Now show me something from your culture. Lyra stood, moving gracefully to a console, which at her touch played a melody of high, clear notes intertwined with deep, resonant tones. The music was unlike anything John had heard, almost visual in its depth. "It's our music for star navigation," Lyra explained, her eyes still closed, immersed in the sound. "It helps us connect with the cosmos." John was silent, lost in the melody, feeling as if he were floating among the stars himself. "It's beautiful. It feels vast." They spent hours exchanging music, songs turning into impromptu dance lessons. Lyra showed John a dance meant to mimic the movement of celestial bodies, her movements fluid and hypnotic. John, less graceful, made her laugh with his earnest attempts. "Your dance is like trying to fly without wings," Lyra giggled, helping him with the steps. "I guess I'm more of a ground-bound creature," John admitted, but his laughter was light, his mood uplifted. As the night deepened, they worked on a project together, combining their technologies. John had an idea to enhance his shuttle's energy efficiency using Zynaris's bioluminescence tech. "This could work," John said, sketching out the concept on a tablet. "Your ship's bioenergy, if we can miniaturize it, could power my shuttle for longer journeys." Lyra leaned over, her shoulder brushing his as they worked. "We'll need to adapt it significantly, but together we can do this." They spent the night in a flurry of creativity, Lyra guiding John through the complexities of Zenari technology, John explaining human engineering principles. Their collaboration was not just about fixing a shuttle, it was about melding two worlds into something new. As they paused for a moment, their work spread out before them. John felt a profound sense of belonging. Here, in this alien space, he wasn't just surviving, he was living, creating, and perhaps finding a new home. The next day found John and Lyra in the ship's communication hub, surrounded by devices that hummed with life. The language barrier between them was both a challenge and a source of endless amusement. "Okay, let's try this again," John said, holding up a small device that Lyra had given him, which was meant to assist with translation, though it was far from perfect. Lyra nodded, touching her own device, which was more advanced but still struggled with the nuances of human language. "Human words are tricky. Lots of meanings for one sound." John laughed. "You're telling me. English is a mess. But let's start simple. Say hello." "Hello," Lyra pronounced, her voice melodious but the words slightly off. "Close enough," John encouraged. "Now in your language, how do you say hello?" Lyra spoke, her voice creating a series of harmonic tones that John found enchanting. "That's hello in Zenari." John tried to mimic the sounds, mangling them into something that made Lyra burst into laughter. "That was creative, John." They continued, John teaching Lyra phrases from Earth, like "thank you," "please," and "I'm sorry," while Lyra introduced him to the melodic structure of Zenari greetings and farewells. Each attempt at the other's language was met with laughter or confusion, turning their lesson into a joyful cacophony. "Music!" John exclaimed suddenly. "We should use music. It's universal, right?" Lyra's eyes lit up. "Yes, music speaks where words fail. Let's try." John brought up a simple melody on his device, a tune from Earth that was easy to follow. "This is called Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Let's see if you can sing it in Zenari." Lyra listened intently, then began to sing, translating the melody into her language. The result was a beautiful, ethereal version of the song, with each note flowing into the next in a way that felt like the song was being rewritten by the stars themselves. "That was incredible," John said, genuinely moved. "Now your turn to teach me a song of yours." Lyra chose a lullaby, explaining it was sung to calm the young on her planet. The melody was complex, with layers of harmony that seemed to dance around each other. John tried to replicate it, his voice rough compared to Lyra's, but he managed to capture the essence. "You're learning fast," Lyra said, her tone genuinely impressed. "With a teacher like you, it's hard not to," John replied, feeling a warmth in his chest from the praise. They moved on to practical communication, using their new vocabulary to work together on the shuttle's control panel. John pointed to a wire. We connect?" Lyra nodded, understanding the intent. Yes, connect. Here, use this tool. She handed him a device that adjusted its shape to fit the human technology, allowing him to connect the wire without damaging it. As they worked, their conversation flowed more freely, a blend of broken English, Zenari, and gestures. They laughed over misunderstandings, like when John thought light in Zenari meant life, and ended up asking how to turn on the life. You want to turn on life? Lyra giggled, her laughter filling the room. I think you mean light. Yeah, light, John chuckled, shaking his head at his mistake. But you know, with you here, turning on life doesn't sound so far off. Lyra looked at him with a curious tilt of her head. You humans have a way with words. I like it. Their collaboration wasn't just about fixing machinery, it was about building a bridge. One word, one laugh, one song at a time. By the end of the day, they had not only advanced the repairs but had also woven a tapestry of understanding between them, one that promised to grow richer with each passing moment. After days of language lessons and shuttle repairs, John and Lyra found themselves in a part of the ship that John hadn't explored yet, the ship's garden. Here the air was thick with the scent of alien flora, and plants glowed with a soft light, casting an otherworldly glow. This is incredible, John said, his voice filled with awe as he touched a leaf that shimmered under his fingertips. It's like walking through a bioluminescent forest. Lyra beamed with pride. This is where we grow our sustenance and beauty. Each plant has a purpose, from food to medicine to light. John looked around, his eyes wide like a child in a candy store. Could we do something here together? Lyra's interest was piqued. What do you have in mind? I've always been interested in botany. On Earth, we use plants for so much. Maybe we could try combining some of your plants with Earth methods? Lyra considered this, her eyes scanning the garden. We could try a hybrid. There's a plant here, similar to what you call herbs on Earth. It's used for healing. Perhaps with your knowledge we can enhance its properties? John nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. Let's do it. They set up a small workspace among the glowing flora. Lyra retrieved several samples of the herb, which gave off a faint, sweet aroma. John, with his rudimentary understanding of Zenari tools, helped prepare the samples. This one, Lyra explained, holding up a leaf, increases energy, but it's slow to work. John thought for a moment. On Earth, we sometimes use fermentation to enhance the potency of herbs. Could we try that here? Lyra looked intrigued. Fermentation? That's not common in Zenari culture, but let's experiment. They began by crushing some leaves and mixing them with a nutrient-rich solution Lyra concocted. John watched, fascinated, as Lyra explained the chemistry behind the plant's energy-giving properties. You're like a scientist, John remarked, genuinely impressed. And you, a botanist, Lyra responded with a smile. Together, a good team. As they waited for the fermentation process to begin, they talked more about their planets, sharing stories of natural wonders. John described the Amazon rainforest, and Lyra spoke of vast floating forests on her world where trees seemed to dance on the wind. Now, let's check on our experiment, Lyra said after some time, leading John to a small sealed container where the mixture was bubbling gently. It's working, John exclaimed, watching the liquid change color. What do we do next? We need to test it, but safely, Lyra cautioned. She took a small drop, placing it on a sensor that analyzed its composition. The energy properties are indeed enhanced. This could be beneficial for long space voyages. John felt a rush of pride. We did that together. Lyra nodded, her expression warm. Zenari and human, working side by side. I think this is just the beginning. Their day in the garden wasn't just about science. It was about sharing their worlds, literally and metaphorically. As they cleaned up, their hands brushed often, each touch a silent acknowledgement of their growing bond. Thank you, Lyra, John said sincerely, for this, for everything. I've learned more here than in all my years of study. And I've learned from you, Lyra replied, her voice soft. You've brought a piece of your world into mine, and it's beautiful. They left the garden with a sense of accomplishment, not just for their scientific endeavor, but for the connection they were forging, one that promised exploration beyond just the stars, but into each other's hearts and cultures. The ship's central atrium was bathed in a soft ambient light, simulating the night sky of Lyra's home planet. The three moons were projected in the ceiling, their light casting gentle shadows over the room. Lyra had invited John here for something special. "Tonight," Lyra said, her voice filled with excitement, "I want to show you a dance. It's called the Dance of Stars." John looked around, the atmosphere already enchanting him. "A dance? I'm afraid my dancing might be more of a comedy than art." Lyra laughed, a sound that seemed to harmonize with the gentle music beginning to play. "It's not about perfection, John. It's about feeling the rhythm of the cosmos. Here, watch." She moved gracefully, her body flowing like water under the moonlit projections. Her movements mimicked the slow, sweeping motions of celestial bodies, each step and turn telling a story of the universe's vast dance. John watched entranced as Lyra twirled, her arms extending like the tails of comets. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "Now you try," Lyra encouraged, stopping beside him. "Feel the music. Feel the stars." John awkwardly began to mimic her movements, his efforts clumsy but earnest. Lyra laughed, but it was warm, encouraging. She took his hands, guiding him through the motions. "Like this," she said, moving his arms in wide arcs. "Imagine you're drawing the constellations with your body." Their hands linked. They danced together, John's steps gradually syncing with Lyra's. The music, a blend of Zinari tunes and human melodies they had shared, filled the room. Each note seemed to guide their movements, their laughter mingling with the music. "You're getting it," Lyra exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy. "Now let's add our own touch." John, feeling more confident, suggested, "Maybe a bit of swing. It's a dance from Earth where you kind of, well, swing your partner." Lyra nodded, curious. "Show me." John demonstrated, leading Lyra into a playful swing move, their bodies moving in sync, yet with a playful bounce that was all Earth. Lyra's laughter was infectious as she caught on, her movements adapting to the new style, blending it with her own. "This is wonderful," Lyra said, breathless from the fun. "Our cultures in dance. It feels like we're creating something new." They continued experimenting with steps, their dance becoming a unique fusion of human and Zinari movements. The stars above seemed to dance with them, their light flickering in rhythm to their steps. As they slowed down, catching their breath, Lyra leaned closer to John. "Dancing like this, it feels like we're part of something bigger, doesn't it?" John nodded, his heart still racing from the dance and the closeness. "It's like we're telling our own story, in the language of the stars." They sat down, the music fading into a gentle hum. Lyra looked at John, her gaze deep, thoughtful. "I've never shared this dance with anyone. It's usually performed alone, or by those who've known each other for moons." "I'm honored," John replied, his voice sincere. "And I think I understand now why your people dance in such a way. It's not just movement, it's connection." Lyra smiled, her hand finding his. "Exactly. And tonight, we've connected not just in dance, but in understanding each other's worlds." They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the soft hum of the ship and their quiet breathing. In this moment, under the artificial stars, they weren't just a human and an alien. They were two beings sharing a universal experience, bound by the dance of stars they had created together. The mood on the ship had shifted from that of mere survival and curiosity to something deeper, something intimate. John and Lyra were in Lyra's personal quarters, a sanctuary filled with soft, glowing plants and the gentle hum of the ship's life systems. The air was sweet with the scent of Zinari incense, creating an atmosphere of tranquility. "I've been thinking," John began, his voice low as he sat on an alien couch that seemed to mold to his form, "about how we've spent these days together, learning, laughing. It's more than I ever imagined." Lyra sat next to him, her eyes reflecting the ambient light. "I feel the same. There's a connection here, isn't there?" John nodded, turning slightly to face her. "It's like we're not just sharing knowledge or dance moves, we're sharing parts of ourselves." Lyra reached out, her hand brushing against his. "I've never felt this with anyone from my own species, let alone a human. It's Unique. Their hands entwined, the touch sending a shiver through John, not from cold, but from the warmth of their connection. Lyra, I I feel like I've found something here, something I didn't know I was looking for. She leaned closer, her breath mingling with his. I know what you mean. Maybe it's the universe telling us something. Their faces were inches apart, the tension electric. John's heart raced, not from fear but anticipation. Can I? He started, his voice trailing off as he looked into her eyes, seeking permission. Lyra answered by closing the distance, their lips meeting in a tentative kiss. It was soft, exploratory, filled with the wonder of their cultural and personal differences blending. The kiss deepened, Lyra's breath catching as the newness of the sensation overwhelmed her. They pulled back slightly, both breathing heavily, their foreheads touching. That was, Lyra began, her voice trembling with excitement. Incredible, John finished for her, his voice husky. He could feel her trembling slightly, not from fear but from the thrill of new sensations. More, Lyra whispered, her lips finding his again, this time with more urgency. Their kisses grew deeper, more passionate, as they explored each other with a curiosity that went beyond the physical. They moved together, guided by instinct and the mutual desire to understand each other in this new profound way. As they lay back on the soft, adaptive couch, their kisses trailed down necks, hands exploring with gentle, respectful touches. You're shaking, John noted, his voice filled with concern and admiration. It's from pleasure, Lyra admitted, her voice a whisper of awe. Your touch, it's like nothing I've felt. It's like the stars are inside me. They continued, their connection growing, not just through words or shared tasks, but through this intimate dance of discovery. Lyra guided John, teaching him the nuances of her body, her reactions, just as he showed her the human expression of love and intimacy. As they moved together, Lyra atop him, her movements were both alien and universally expressive of pleasure. She trembled with each new sensation, her body language speaking volumes where words could not. John, she breathed out, her voice a mix of Zenari and English. We are together, John finished, his hands on her waist, feeling the rhythm of their shared heartbeat. We're together in this, Lyra. Their moment was a culmination of all they had learned, shared, and felt. It wasn't just about physical connection. It was about understanding, about merging two worlds in the most fundamental way. As they lay together afterward, the silence between them was not empty, but filled with the profound realization of what they had found in each other. Morning light, or what passed for morning on Zenaris, filtered through the translucent walls of Lyra's quarters, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the room. John stirred, feeling the warmth of Lyra beside him, their bodies still intertwined from the night's intimacy. He watched her sleep for a moment, her features soft in the glow, before gently waking her. Lyra, it's time to wake up. Lyra's eyes fluttered open, meeting his gaze, a smile spreading across her face. Good morning, John. Morning, he confirmed, his voice warm. I've been thinking. About us, about what we've built here. Lyra sat up, her expression becoming serious yet hopeful. What do you mean? John took her hand, feeling the connection they had forged. I don't want to leave this. Not just the ship, but you. What if we could explore more? Together? Lyra's eyes widened with a mix of surprise and joy. You mean travel together? Through the stars? Yes, I've learned so much from you, and I think together we could do something incredible. Not just repair my shuttle, but maybe find new worlds, new knowledge. Lyra squeezed his hand, her enthusiasm evident. I would like that very much. Zyneris could be our home, our base. We can teach each other endlessly. They stood, the decision making the air between them electric with possibility. First, we need to make sure my shuttle is fully integrated with your tech, John suggested, already moving towards action. Let's go, Lyra said, leading the way to where John's shuttle was docked. Once there, they worked side by side, their hands moving with a synchronicity born from the night before. Lyra showed John how to merge Zenari energy systems with the shuttle's human-designed parts, creating an efficiency that neither technology could achieve alone. This here, Lyra pointed at a new component, will allow your shuttle to recharge from the ambient energy of space, much like Zenaris does. John marveled at the innovation. That's beyond anything we could do on Earth. With this, we could explore further than ever before. They continued to refine the shuttle, discussing future plans. Where should we go first? Or John asked, his eyes alight with the thrill of adventure. There's a nebula near the edge of my known space, Lyra said, her voice tinged with excitement. It's said to have remnants of ancient civilizations. We could learn much there. Then that's our first destination, John declared, his decision firm. But we'll need to prepare, gather more supplies, maybe even some Zenari plants for sustenance. Lyra nodded. And I want to bring some of your Earth music. It will remind us of your world as we venture into the unknown. They spent the day packing, not just with physical items, but with dreams and plans. Lyra showed John how to use Zenari hydroponics to grow food in space, while John introduced her to the concept of human recipes, blending their culinary worlds. As they worked, their conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter and the easy comfort of two people who had found a profound connection. Imagine, Lyra said, her voice dreamy, a library of knowledge from both our worlds, a garden where we grow not just food, but ideas. And music, John added, from both our planets, creating new songs as we go. The shuttle was ready, transformed into something new, a symbol of their union. They stood back, admiring their work, the shuttle now a testament to their partnership. Are you ready? Lyra asked, her hand finding his once more. John looked at her, then at the shuttle, feeling a surge of emotion. With you? I'm ready for anything. They boarded the shuttle, now part of Zenaris but also a piece of Earth, setting the course for the nebula. As they launched, their laughter filled the cockpit, a sound that promised not just adventure, but a life together, exploring, learning, and loving across the cosmos. In this new beginning, they weren't just travelers or explorers. They were partners in the truest sense, embarking on a journey that would write their names among the stars.